I'm going to do some screen shares with you with PowerPoints that I have available to you on your course's site. And it is going to be about the superlative. So the first thing to keep in mind is that the superlative in Spanish is really just vocabulary. So the reason I'm not doing any grammar video or anything like that is because it really is just vocabulary. I just want to walk through some of the PowerPoint slides with you, not all of them. Obviously, if you have them available to you, you can look at them on your own at your leisure. But just so you can see a couple of things in context in the PowerPoint slides, once again, about the superlative, that is largely vocabulary. So make sure that you get on it in terms of memorizing that vocabulary as soon as you can. So I'm going to start the screen share. I'm going to show you two different PowerPoints. This first one will be a little bit more explanatory. So it's going to show you a lot more explanations. And the second PowerPoint that I show you literally has no explanations of anything whatsoever, but it does give you lots of sentences used in context. So am I going to look at all of these slides? No, but you can see that we're talking about comparing people and things, but this is vocabulary that is called the superlative. I'm not going to make it the full screen, and that's on purpose. So the superlative in English is basically stuff like biggest, tallest, finest, prettiest, fastest, slowest. That's the short way to do the superlative in English, and then the longer way to do the superlative in English is that stuff that you see at the bottom. So like, this is the most complicated problem that I've ever done, or this is the least expensive option, so I'm going to go ahead and buy it, or my brother is the most intelligent person of the family or in the family. So that would be what the superlative is in English, just so you have some sort of reference, even though the superlative in English and the superlative in Spanish have very little to do with each other. On the next slide, they're giving you some superlatives in Spanish use in context. They are calling your attention with that arrow down towards the bottom of something that they want to call your attention to, because it is a thing that you need to be aware of. So they say, Ana is the smallest of all the students. In English and in Spanish, we have Ana es la más pequeña de todos los estudiantes. So what I want to call your attention to, even though this is largely vocabulary, is some students might say two things about this. Why is this la? So there's a reason for that. It's because the la is our feminine singular definite article, and it matches Ana. Remember that we can say in Spanish, el estudiante, we're talking about students, right? We can say el estudiante, la estudiante, los estudiantes, las estudiantes. And so since we're talking about students, and since we can have feminine and masculine and singular and plural students, but we are referring to Ana being the smallest of the students, and the feminine singular definite article that means the to match with Ana must be la. So that is the reason why the way that we say the when referring to Ana is la, feminine and singular definite article. Remember that all of your definite articles, this has nothing to do with a superlative, this is something to do with Spanish 1 kind of stuff, but remember that all of your definite articles, whether it be el, la, los, las, they all mean the. It's just a matter of whether they're singular or plural or feminine or masculine. The other thing that they're calling your attention to in this underlined is in English, we say something like Ana is the smallest in the school, like she's the smallest student in the school. But in Spanish, notice that we use this, they. We have a way to say in, it's N, E-N, but we never ever, when comparing things using the superlative, which is what this is, we never use the preposition en, like we would in English, in, we use they. So they're calling your attention to that with that big old arrow, and it says here, Spanish uses only they, never en. So please keep that in mind. I'm only gonna look through a few slides with you. I'll do just a few more. So we have some sentences and they're helping you to diagram the sentence and to translate the sentences. And it says, entre las personas en mi familia. So among the people in my family, mi tío es el más alto de todos. My uncle is the most tall, is what it looks like if we did a word for word translation from Spanish to English. My uncle is the most tall of all, or of everyone. If you need to think about this as a word for word plunk down and say, my uncle is the most tall of all, that's not a bad approach, but just notice that the most correct equivalent in English would be, my uncle is the tallest. If you remember what I showed you on the first slide, my uncle is the tallest of everyone, or of us all. Then we're still talking about among the people in my family, mis primos son los más inteligentes de todos. Mis primos son los más inteligentes de todos. So if we were trying to translate this, not looking at what they have written for us here, my cousins are the most intelligent of everyone, or of all, or of all of us. Notice again that in both of these sentences, they're using they, and notice that they're saying to you, instead of translating the whole sentence, they're just calling your attention to el más alto, the tallest, or the most tall, and los más inteligentes, the most intelligent. The thing that I would like to call your attention to that they did not is, why is this el and why is this los? So this the, if you were listening on the last slide, when it was la was the way to say the, because we were talking about Ana, this the tallest is el in its masculine and singular form, definite article. Remember, like I said a few minutes ago, el, la, los, las is the way to say the, just depending on whether we want to do masculine or feminine or singular or plural or any combination of the above. This the is the in its masculine singular form. Why? Because who is the most tall, or who is the tallest? Mi tío. And mi tío, my uncle, is masculine and singular. In this sentence, why is this the los? Because who is the most intelligent? Mis primos, my cousins, mis primos, would be considered masculine and plural, or potentially neutral, or like a mixed crowd and plural. And so that's why we need to have the masculine and plural, or neutral plural, definite article, los. Then as you go through, you can look and see that we have other comparative superlatives that we use, like mejor, peor, mayor, menor, and they give you those sentences that are very much like the ones that we just looked at together. So I'll let you do that on your own. And then they give you one more slide, And I will actually talk about this one just very quickly because it's a different kind of superlative. So the first kind of superlative that exists in Spanish is the first one that we just saw, where you're saying something like the most intelligent, or the most tall, or the tallest, where your definite article el, la, los, las must match what it is you're describing. And that's the first kind of superlative in Spanish. The second kind of superlative in Spanish is just as common, and it's to say that something is extremely or very, or I would say so, meaning if I want to say this test is extremely difficult, or this test is very difficult, or this test is so difficult, that's the other kind of superlative. And whenever we want to make this kind of superlative to say extremely or very, or as I just added to this PowerPoint, so, we would use the ending that you see there, ísimo. Notice that ísimo has an accent mark over its first I, and ísimo attached to an adjective converts it into a superlative adjective. And so since it is an adjective, it has to agree in gender, in number, with whatever it's describing, like all adjectives do. So it has 4 different forms. Let's say I wanted to say what they're saying right here. Difícil is the original adjective, meaning difficult. But if I wanted to talk about an exam, el examen, that is so difficult, or very or extremely difficult, then my superlative adjective would not be what they have right here, which is dificilísima in its feminine singular form. But if we were talking about el examen, it would have to be in its masculine singular form, and it would be dificilísimo. And again, in its masculine singular form, because it's an adjective, masculine singular, that would be describing el examen, which is masculine and singular. They have it in its feminine and singular form because it is describing mi clase. FYI, clase is feminine and singular. La clase. So that is why they're using the feminine singular form. If we were talking about las clases, this superlative adjective would turn into its feminine and plural form, las clases. So we're talking about those really or extremely or very difficult classes. It would be dificilísimas. And again, in the example that I gave you, if we were talking about more than one exam, the exams, los exámenes, that are so difficult or very hard or really, 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 really hard or extremely hard or difficult or whatever, then obviously this difficult, difícil, in its superlative adjective form would have to be masculine and plural, and it would be dificilísimos. So as you can see, it tells you up here that it could be all of your superlative adjectives could be could end in ísimo, ísima, ísimos, or ísimas, which are the examples that I just gave you. Please notice that what they're telling you right here is actually pretty important. It says if the adjective ends in a vowel, the one that they're giving you is actually bueno, B-U-E-N-O, bueno. They're saying if the adjective ends in a vowel, drop the vowel before you add the ísimo, ísima, ísimos, ísimas. So notice that the the basic adjective right here was difícil. Since it did not end in a vowel, all we had to do was add ísimo, ísima, ísimos, ísimas to the end. But this, they're trying to use the basic adjective bueno, and since bueno ends in a vowel, notice that we drop the vowel. In this case, it was an O before we add ísimas. In this case of their example, it could have been ísimos or ísima or ísimo. So, mis otras clases son buenísimas. My other classes are so good, or my other classes are extremely good, or my other classes are very good, or my other classes are really, 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 really good. Why is this in its feminine and plural form? Because it has to match, it's an adjective in its superlative form, and it has to match las clases. Just really quickly, it said that my screen sharing was paused. I have no idea why. I have no idea what you guys saw, but if you have to listen to the audio, then you can do that. It says that my screen sharing is still paused. Hold on, let me unpause it. Okay, I'm gonna try to go back to the screen share. So it was saying that my screen share was unpaused. If you didn't see the actual PowerPoint itself that I was sharing with you, and you just heard my voice blah, blah, blahing, please remember that I have made these PowerPoints available to you on your class site. So let me go and share a little bit of the second PowerPoint that I wanted to show you. Just a couple of slides. So here we go. This is examples in context. These kinds of PowerPoints, it's still a superlative. I'm just gonna go through 3 slides with you on this one. So this question, ¿qué celebración es la más importante de México? ¿Qué celebración es la más importante de México? What would that question mean? What celebration is the most important of Mexico? Why is this la? Because we're talking about la celebración, and so it has to be in its feminine singular form. Many people honestly would shove back in there the word celebration, and that would be okay as well. You can say, honestly, in real life, you could say, it's redundant, but you could say, ¿qué celebración es la celebración más importante de México? Many people will find that as kind of like a, I don't know, a cheat sheet kind of way to figure out what this definite article needs to be, whether it should be feminine or masculine or singular or plural, is literally shoving the noun back in there. So shoving celebración back in there and then taking it out, and then leaving the la celebración, take out celebración, and then you know what your definite article should be. And then it says the answer, la celebración de la independencia es la más importante. We could, again, right here, if we wanted to kind of cheat, put it in, take it out, we could shove in the noun again and say la celebración más importante, and then take out celebración, and then that's a little cheater kind of way. Maybe not cheater, you know what I mean. Checks and balances system, I don't know, to figure out whether your definite article needs to be la or el or los or las. Just as a little side note, because I've got a captive audience, please note that Mexican Independence Day is not Cinco de Mayo, because that's picture right here is accurate, and they are not showing Cinco de Mayo. Just on a quick cultural note to make us all more culturally competent and aware, and less ignorant about what Cinco de Mayo is or isn't. Since you're still a captive audience, you can research it if you care, but all Cinco de Mayo was like a battle, let's say, and the Mexican really underfunded military beat the French military in the state of Puebla in Mexico. And so people in the United States celebrate Cinco de Mayo as if it's a really big deal. But if we all go to Mexico right now and we say, Feliz Cinco de Mayo, Happy Cinco de Mayo, people will say, what is that? That would be like saying somebody here, like, Happy Battle of Little Bighorn or something, something like that. That was a very regional thing, and not that it wasn't that big of a deal, but it didn't really get to be like a nationwide thing. The idea of celebrating Cinco de Mayo was brought to the United States through Texas, and I'll stop, but Cinco de Mayo is a really fun day here to bust open a piñata and to drink ourselves a margarita, but never really tell a person living in Mexico, Happy Cinco de Mayo. They will wonder what significance it is to you, because it's of no significance to them unless they live in the state of Puebla in Mexico. Next slide. So, ¿qué música es la más popular de México? I don't agree with this. I just have all kinds of issues with this, I think. I don't agree with this slide. The question is asking, what music is the most popular of Mexico? And the answer is la música del mariachi es la más popular de México. So the question, what music is the most popular? Remember, there are little hint cheater kind of thing to figure out what our definite article should be. What are we talking about being the most popular? Well, the music, la música. So if you wanted to, you could actually make this sentence, ¿qué música es la música más popular de México? And then just yank out the word música, and then you would leave in your definite article and never have any question as to what your definite article needed to be. Our answer, according to this, is mariachi music is the most popular music of Mexico. Again, it's la because we're referring to la música. Little cultural side note, since this is where my roots come from. Mariachi music is extremely popular at formal festivals and formal events like weddings, and if you're, I don't know, serenading your girlfriend on a balcony, you'll bring in a mariachi band or something like that. But the most popular music in Mexico is very honestly the same kind of music that we listen to here, and they like, I don't know, reggaeton and hip hop and everything that would be like on the top 40 kind of thing, or the most listened to on the internet or on, like Spotify or Pandora or whatever, would be the same music that people will listen to in Mexico. Is mariachi music the most traditional kind of music of Mexico? Colonialized Mexico? Absolutely. Most popular? No. People driving around in their cars or at the gym are not listening to mariachi music with trumpets and guitars and accordions. Oh gosh. Next slide. Last slide. I'm gonna quit while I'm not ahead. ¿Qué civilización es la más antigua de México? So what civilization is the most ancient or the ancient is, I guess the most ancient of Mexico. Why is it la? Because it's la civilización. And they are saying to us here that la civilización maya is la más antigua de México. I happen to agree. Kind of. The Maya civilization is the oldest that happens to be the most known of Mexico, but there are other indigenous civilizations like the Olmecs or like the Totonaca and other smaller, let's call them indigenous populations. Some would call them tribes if they were a little bit smaller. But many people in Mexico teaching like a culture and civilization course would strongly disagree that the Maya is the most ancient civilization in Mexico. It's just between the three that we will talk about, like the Mayas, Incas, and the Aztecs. It just happens to be the oldest one that we know about here in the United States. If you're curious about any of these things, which I'm sure you're probably not, yeah, look up the Olmecs or many of the earlier, more ancient tribes of Mexico that were just smaller and so didn't make, therefore, that large of an impact. I did not mean for this to be Stephanie's cultural insight and disagreement with the publisher, but again, this is just a video about the superlative. Wow, I'm looking at the screen and I realized that there's so much sun coming in. I don't know if you guys can see me. It doesn't really matter. As long as you can see the screen when I was sharing, that's the important thing. Anyways, this was a superlative. All of the PowerPoints, both of them that I showed you, are available to you on your course's site. If you'd like to look at them, if any screen sharing got frozen or whatever, you could always listen to my voice, because for whatever reason, and look at the PowerPoints on your own. Just remember that this is largely vocabulary, and you would just have to memorize how do we use the superlative in Spanish. But please do remember that there are two different kinds of superlative. In the second slide that I showed you with all the cultural stuff, they focused on the first form of the superlative. And in the first PowerPoint that I showed you that I actually might have gotten frozen on, I guess I'll see whenever you look at it or whenever one of you guys tells me that it got messed up. The second kind of the superlative is whenever we add ísimo, ísima, ísimos, and ísimas to the end of an adjective to say like so fun or very fun or extremely fun or really, 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 really fun. So this is all about the superlative and Profesora Stephanie's cultural contentions, I suppose. Thank you.